I've just turned the streaming on, and I will say good morning to everybody. There was somebody in behind Lupan, probably from Fiji, but I'm not copying too well at this stage. So hopefully things will change very shortly. By the way, if you don't copy David earlier on when he does his weather, don't feel that it's a problem to ask for a repeat. We know conditions change at this time of the day. We certainly won't bite your head off if you want to get a repeat of weather that you haven't quite heard properly. That's the whole purpose we're here. So we do want to make sure that the weather gets through. But the only thing I think we bite people's head off is if they use the word Romeo, but I'm sure that that's not going to be the case.
They do not get a repeat.
They don't get a repeat. Okay, well that's the penalty. If you use the word Romeo, you don't get a repeat. Okay, it's good morning from Goldfather Radio, ZMH 286. It's a crystal clear morning here, which means that the temperature is pretty nippy. Our thermometer on the roof says 12 degrees, but we've been checking the min-max one just outside our radio room door here, and it says 10. So that's not very tropical, but there are a lot of people going to be escaping the weather today. So it'll be all go, particularly in the Marsden Cove area. I see 17 boats are leaving today. Thank you for the messages, folks, so that we know who's leaving. But we have crystal clear skies, 1008.8. It's just dropped a little bit, so it seems to be steadying out. I haven't really had a look at the maps. So I'll just see if there's anybody copying us that wants to give a report. If you cannot copy us clearly at the moment, don't call in now. We'll pick you up later. But we do have a report in from Marilyn. It's just come in. Let's have a look here. Boy, now I've lost it. We've been toing and froing on something. Anyway, the report from Maryland, 27 south and 17851 east, ripping along at 8 knots, southwest 18. And we had the report on Yut from the Y2K, which we've just been talking to. They've got about southwest 20. So everybody is indeed very, very happy about the winds and whistling them on to their destination. But I will do a pause here to see if there's anybody wanting to send in some information. I know there's somebody there. Could I have a relay, please? The boat that's calling, I know you're there, and I will give another call in about 10 minutes because it's just not very good conditions at the moment. So I will call again in 10 minutes. And as I mentioned, up there in Fiji, it's looking pretty good. And in fact, Pilgrim has reported clear skies and 5 knots out of the south of the 1011. So all looking good there. Over in Tonga, this was about 40 minutes ago from Whistler in the Hapais, still in tropic conditions there, 23 to 28 southwest and 100% cloud cover and rain. It's just looking miserable in Tonga. Okay, I'm going to give a bit of news and then we'll try again to hear people, but the propagation is a little bit slow to come right for us today. Starting off with Samoa. We don't often start in the islands, but Rocket Man, which is the film about the life of Elton John, we actually didn't get to see it. I don't know, I didn't. Well, we should have probably seen it. We never get ourselves moving to go to the movies. It's been banned in Samoa, so if you wanted to see it and you're in Samoa, you won't have much luck because they have decided its depictions of homosexuality is not in keeping with the country's cultural and Christian beliefs. They have in fact, you could get jailed for that sort of thing. So you will not get to see the film in Samoa. The main news on all of the news sources actually is the continuing huge protests in Hong Kong. I mean, boy, when they have a protest, it's just tens of thousands of people blocking the streets. It got a little bit violent yesterday. Rubber bullets, pepper spray, batons. but there are just tens of thousands of people demonstrating against the decision or the discussion, really, as it is at the moment, to be able to extradite people from Hong Kong to China. So the debate has been delayed because nobody can move anywhere, not to get to shops, not to get to the Parliament to discuss the whole thing. It's absolutely awesome, the pictures from the sky. It's just total blockage.
And that's what they're scared to
And
death
that's,
of.
yes, they really are. Well, it's one thing that they have really been, well, they were sort of promised that things wouldn't get too bad, but of course, promises are promises, aren't they? Australia, some pretty severe weather warnings have been issued for nearly the whole of Victoria, and also in New South Wales, the warm temperatures and winds up to 120 kilometres per hour have almost wiped out the snowfields. It must be school holiday time because there was quite a lengthy article, but certainly in Victoria with the wind and rain, it's not going to be a very good holiday period if it indeed is a holiday. In New Zealand, the British hiker was found dead in the Tararua. That's the guy they've been looking for a couple of weeks now, but he looks like he died quite quickly. He fell near a waterfall. I'm sure that was not going to be a surprise to David. He always gets very irritated if I get near waterfalls. I have a tendency to want to, I don't know, look down and
go to the edge and look down. She drives me crazy, folks. I mean, I'm standing 10 feet back. I could see the same thing. Why? This isn't a Kiwi. This is
well, he was British. Genes. It must be part. It's British. Yeah. He was British. It must be the same genes that we've got. Anyway, tropical cyclone Vayu, I think it is heading towards barreling towards India and the Gujarat province. There's been about 300,000 people evacuated. The winds, it's an absolute doozy. The winds are 110 miles per hour.
It is hurricane season.
Well, it is hurricane season up there, that's for sure. But, and boy, do they have decent hurricanes. Well, of course, the big news in New Zealand is the departures today. There's 17 people leaving from Marsden, and I guess quite a few people are leaving from Opua, and other ones just scattered around the place. So there's going to be quite a hive of activity. Poor Bruce up there in Marsden, he's going to have to take the afternoon off. I don't know how quickly he'll be able to manage 17 people. Maybe he did some of them yesterday. Well, another bit of local news. You can tell from my news that there's not an awful lot going on in the world because Britain is sort of just talking about their new Prime Minister, who it's going to be. Mr. Trump is sort of talking about Mexico, but everyone thinks that that's old news. But anyway, this news is about as much as Auckland can give you. A man in Grey Lynn grew a 6.7 kilogram kumara. It looks like a giant sort of tumour thing that's got bulges. I don't know how you would actually peel it. But evidently it's just a normal kumara when you eat it. He's got, all of them are in the 2 to 4 kilogram, the rest of them, kilogram category. So there you are. Going now to New York. Earlier in the week, I don't think I mentioned it, but there was a helicopter. It crashed onto a building in Manhattan. It scared the bejesus out of everybody because it just hammered into the roof in Manhattan, and they have actually banned helicopters in Manhattan itself. There's evidently 3 helicopter pads, but this guy, it was during a wind and rain, well no, sorry, not wind, it was rain and fog. He took off and he got killed, but he was lost and just evidently, I don't know how he managed to find. Well, it wouldn't be difficult, would it, to hit something in Manhattan and high buildings?
I'd go straight up.
Yep. So anyway, he turns out that he was only licensed for VFR, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem for litigators. There was an interesting article which I haven't really absorbed properly. It was in today's paper about passwords. And these annoying passwords, it just about drives you nuts. I have now 3 cram-packed A4 pages of passwords. And it was an interesting article because, excuse me, companies based in New Zealand and all government agencies have evidently got to comply with rules set by the GCSB, that's the Government Communications Security Bureau, and this regards passwords in companies. They have to be a minimum length. In some places, the government, it has to be, I think, 14 characters, but a minimum for most of 10 characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, etc., and they have to change them every 90 days. Well, this, of course, means that people have to write them down because it drives you nuts. You can't remember all these things. So, in fact, there is a sort of a worldwide trend now to make them, because of writing them down, they're actually less secure than something that's simpler and that you remember yourself, like what day is it, for example. So there might be a change in the confounded, annoying password system for companies that makes it easier to remember and not have to write them down. All right, that's about it, really. Oh, Australians. There won't be any Australians listening to me because Australians are evidently avoiding the news. There was quite a big survey, and it showed that 62% of Australians listen to the news only sporadically, and 44% think the news is too negative, and that compares to about 34% globally. And as for trust, well, what they do here, they sort of believe 44% of Australians trust what they hear. In the UK, 40%, and in the US, 32%. So
Right.
Mr. Trump's fake news must be getting
So
through to people.
70% don't trust it.
So 70% of people in the US don't trust the news. All right, I am going
So
to try
that's good.
again now to hear people. Hopefully, now that the sun's risen a bit in the sky over our broadcast area, I'll be able to hear you a bit better. So the bloke that called before, could you try again, please? Oh, I've got you pretty good now, Peter. Thank you for waiting. Yes, I noticed yesterday it was just better at this time. Go ahead with your position, over.
174 degrees 45. We check the
Oh, Roger, I missed the degrees of latitude. Oh, I think we're going to have to start the position again because I wrote down yesterday's longitude and I thought that's a bit strange. So give me the current latitude and longitude. Oh, it is the same as yesterday. All right, but boy, you've certainly moved. God, it's nothing like waterline length, is there, folks? Here they are at 2645 today, and yesterday they were at 2827. Nothing like 70 foot of waterline. All right, well, it sounds like all the ladies will be quite happy with the conditions now. Over. Yeah, that's good. The sound of the engine does tend to drive you mad after a day or so. So, yep, you'll be one of the happy ones with that nice, comfortable 15 knots of southwest, even with the bit of the push from the swell. All right, thank you for that. Is there anybody else? No, nothing heard. And I think it's probably time. David's got a lot of weather. Just a quick roundup of what's happening on the streaming here. And we've got nobody watching today, so that's interesting. They're all busy trying to get ready. I don't see why they're not watching, because there must be something wrong with the system, because I've got a few comments in here. Thank you for that, Margie. So raining again since last night. And Gone with the Wind, all ready to roll like everybody else. Had their final dinner last night with the fleet, and now they'll all be at sea. And Scoots and Belloc, and we've got a message from Counting Stars. Alright, so the Hawkeyes have eased, according to Margie. That wind is down to 10 knots for the moment, south-southwest. So I'll pass the microphone to see what David has in store for everybody today.
All right, well, it sounds like a very small fleet actually has left New Zealand today. It must be about 25 boats total.
About to.
Yeah, about to leave anyhow. Probably not too many left in the country after this exodus. So we'll start with the synoptic picture. Now, the low that was over the North Island yesterday, that's moved off. So by lunch, it'll be just northeast of East Cape. Now, one of the troughs to affect Fiji and Tonga from the low that was just southwest of Tongatapu yesterday ripped through eastern Fiji, the Lao, and then quickly moved over Tonga yesterday and last night. It's still there this morning. That small depression that trough came from appears to have dissipated, but the two troughs are actually lingering, so they're still there, getting basically winds that are maintaining their effect, if you will. Now, in the North Tasman, we've got a weak ridge that's pushing east, trying to push east, and a very small high center is going to lie east of Hervey Bay by late tonight, and it's going to be about 1022 central pressure. Now, in the mid-Tasman, a series of fronts cover the area, really, all from depressions in the Southern Ocean. Now, the North Island here in New Zealand is still under cyclonic flow from that depression that's northeast of East Cape. Now, one of these troughs is covering the very tip of New Zealand and a little bit further north than that. It's weak, but it's there. You can see it on satellite imagery. There's not much in it at all. So the winds departing New Zealand today are southwest, 10 to 20 knots. Now, that's a pretty wide band of wind strength, but that's due to the numerous cloud showers that are from that trough that I talked about. They shouldn't interfere with departure in any way that I could see. Now, the trough looks to prevail Friday, and it's actually going to inch south, and it's going to come down toward Gulf Harbor Radio. So it's not going to affect anybody that's leaving. Now, by late Friday, the winds north of the trough, the current trough that is in the ocean just north of New Zealand, the winds are going to increase to about 20 knots. Might even be 20 to 25, and still out of the southwest. Now, there's going to be an area of lighter wind further north from that. I'll get to that in a minute. Now, the next frontal band approaches New Zealand on Saturday. The winds may become westerlies, then northwesterlies, as the front nears Cape Reinga. Now, by early Sunday, the band is going to not only affect New Zealand, but it's going to stretch over the cruising route. And if you were to look at it on a chart, it would run from Hervey Bay in Australia east to about 170 east, and then it slants southeast to 30 and the dateline. Now, I mention that because by Sunday, all of you yachts that are leaving today should be at 30 south. That's about, on average, what everybody takes to get there, about 3 days, roughly, depends on the winds, but on average, that's about what it is. So expect the frontal band to overtake you at that point. The winds westerly north of the band, and then south to south-southwest south of the band. Now, the winds don't look particularly strong. They might be somewhat fresh, but not really a big deal, as the isobars have very little gradient in them. Now, this does not mean you are not going to get gusts that are higher, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, by Monday, from, I would say, 30 south to 24 south, fairly large band of latitude, there will be light air, mostly southeast. So those of you planning on Minerva should not have any worries at all. Now, going to New Caledonia is a bit more complicated, as by roughly Monday, a polar dip looks quite possible just off the coast of Australia. And there may be a subtropical low forming near about 29 and 162 east. Now, that's not going to directly affect boats going to New Cal, but what it's going to do is the rumline winds between 30 and New Cal could be northeast, probably about 10 to 15 in the mean, but northeast winds could put you, well, it depends on your boat, but it could be a close reach or something of that nature. So be aware of that. Now, not all the models are agreeing exactly on this, but that's something to be aware of. Now, the Vanuatu-bound yachts should not see this wind shift, so you can ignore that part of what I'm saying. So, in summary, then, departure today looks okay. Expect southwest winds with a mean of about 15 knots. They'll be rising in the next few days, getting up to about 20 knots for a period of time. And by next Wednesday, almost a week from now, at Minerva Reef, the winds are going to pick up again. They'll be up in the 20 knot range, mostly southeast, give or take. Now, that New Cal wind shift, as I said, may not happen at all, as the models do disagree on this. So, with a little bit of luck, the New Cal window may just be fine. We'll see what things look like on Monday, and all of you, as I said, will have reached 30 south by then. The models will have updated themselves, and we'll see what's happening. We definitely are not going much beyond 3 days on what the models are agreeing about. In fact, they're changing from day to day, just about. It's very frustrating for me dealing with this. I just can't prepare very much in advance on some of this because of that reason. Now, let's take a look at Tonga now, where a very slow-moving trough continues to pummel the group, really. Cloud and showers can be expected today as well. Looking at satellite imagery, you can see this cloud. You should be used to it by now, boats up there in Tonga. Now, there will be isolated thunderstorms bringing heavy rain and wind shifts. They're present. You can see them. Surprisingly, model mean winds are light and variable today. Tomorrow, a little more organized, southwest to south maybe, about 10 knots in the mean. And, of course, all of the winds are going to be much higher in squalls, fronts, troughs, or heavy rain events. Now, we got an email, and the email reports stronger winds than forecast. I just don't know what to say. I mean, we have been harping on trying to teach you folks what happens when you have troughs, fronts, high clouds, thunderstorms. These downflow winds, folks, are bringing air from higher altitudes down to the surface. I looked this morning at the 700 millibar charts, and we're getting 35 to 40 knots up there. Now, those winds do come to the surface when we have these sort of activities. And no model at all is ever going to predict that at all. It just isn't going to happen. So please, remember the little thing about writing 100 times, models are just an idea. There are some culprits out there, and I'll name it. Predict Wind is one of them. They talk about how accurate they are. Well, folks, that is almost, I'm not going to say criminal, but that is stupid, because there is no way the model is going to pick up these little mesoscale events. Now, there are some models around that possibly could do it, but very seldom do you get this. Now, remember also that when I give winds, you need to always give them a band. And my rule of thumb is plus or minus 5 knots, and gusts up to 50 knots. So a 20 knot mean wind means a 30 knot gust. It's not rocket science. This is how it works out on the average. Sometimes gusts are going to be much higher. As an example, the winds at 500 millibar, which sometimes can come to the surface in what they call microbursts. The winds over Tonga at 500 millibar are 50 to 60 knots. So there you have it. It is just not predictable. But when you do see reports of troughs or fronts, you have to assume that your model is not going to give you the complete picture. So anyway, enough of that. I'll give you the airport reports for Tonga. Vavao reports rain and showers. Variable winds there, hardly any at all. Barometer 1011. The Hapais reported rain. Westerlies at 12 knots, barometer 1011. And Tongatapu northeast 5. Notice that the winds are all over. Scattered showers, barometer 1012. Now the winds will probably become southeasterlies by the weekend, and they may be picking up to about 20 knots by Monday through Wednesday. So stronger winds for next week for Tonga, as hopefully these troughs move out. We start to develop some trade wind activity there. Now Fiji still has the lingering trough over the eastern part of the group. This covers Vanuatu, which would be Sevu Sevu, the Lao, and then that's the one that continues on to Tonga. Now, satellite imagery shows scattered to broken over the rest of Fiji. So, within the trough proper, expect rain and thunderstorms. Cloudy periods elsewhere for Fiji. And the winds, the mean winds south to southeast, about 15 to 20. Tomorrow, mostly southeast, but still about 15 to 20. And if you're up there in Fiji and you need more detail, give us a call when I'm done, and we can look at it a little bit more closely. Vanuatu shows scattered cloud on imagery. Most of it's moving south to north. The wind is southeast for the group, generally about 15 to 20 knots, and about the same tomorrow. A lot of wind shadow areas today. Now, for those of you that are in Vanuatu, winds get very tricky for Vanuatu when they blow in the same direction as the islands are oriented. So you follow me there. The winds are blowing exactly parallel to the direction that the islands are pointed. Now, the area of complication occurs on the northern ends. So the winds, what happens is the winds curve around. And as an example would be a southeast wind, say on the east side of Santo as an example. That could actually curve around the top, and you can actually get northerlies on the west side of Santo, even though the prevailing wind is southeast. Now those winds don't go for a very long distance, but if you happen to be up toward the northern end, you could really wonder what's going on. You have to see it to believe it. We've been to Vanuatu many times, and this is always amazing to me. And it could go the other way. The wind on the west side, southeast, can turn northerly on the east side. Even though a mile or two off the coast of Santo, you could have southeast winds. So for modeling purposes, pretty difficult. So when you're in Vanuatu, you could expect almost anything when you're in close to these islands. Now, Nukal also has scattered cloud, moving with the lower level winds, generally southeast to northwest. Mostly fair conditions today, I'd say. Plenty of sun, but there will be scattered cloud. Winds about 15 knots in our lagoon area from the southeast. Tomorrow, southeast, east-southeast in that category, and about the 10 knot range. There is a chance of showers every now and again there. Quite isolated, I'd say, but still pretty good for the lagoon. So any questions that you have, come now, and please remember what I said about models and winds versus troughs, fronts, high clouds, thunderstorms, etc., etc. Okay, here's the chief.
I should send them a picture of Eva's beautiful painting that confirms all that. I haven't heard yet from Bloomers this morning. I was just looking at a few other reports that have come in. Counting Stars did report pretty decent conditions now in Vianney Bay, light south-southeast, 95% cloud cover. So, we've got a confirmation from Leilani on Amazing Grace that Swanda, you might know the folk on Swanda, it's a Belize cat, about 43-foot cat. They have got major rigging problems, are on their way back to New Zealand. I think they must have had some pretty rough weather at the earlier stages of their trip. Okay, let's just try for Bloomers. Bloomers, are you on frequency? Nothing heard from Bloomers. Is there anybody else with any questions at this stage? Please call. Wouldn't mind if somebody could give a call to boats that we cannot copy, because I think the borderline, which are usually 30, is a little bit higher today. Is there anybody here that could give a call for me? Pilgrim, are you on? No, Pilgrim's not there. Is there anybody could give a call for me, please, to see if we've got boats that are in my skip? Okay, I've got a couple there. Thank you for the comeback. I think it was Anahata, first of all. David, was that you? Could you give a call and let me know when you're finished?
Okay. Call from Gulf Harbor Radio 21 who'd like to check in the morning. Please go ahead now. Nothing heard, Patricia.
Thank you for that. It's always good to check. And I noticed there's a couple of boats going to be stopping in at Minerva. I don't know whether north and south. I know Avalon, you're one of them. But if anybody goes into South Minerva, could you please let me know whether that huge buoy thing, it's like a big mast really, it's about 12 metres long, it got washed up on the reef during the last group that were there. If you could let me know that it's still on the reef or not, as the case may be, because if it's back out floating, the RCC will need to find it. Okay.
Have they ever?
No, they've never identified it at this stage.
I can say something.
So hang on a minute.
Yeah, I looked at that thing, and could very well be a wave buoy. They've got a number of them in the Southwest Pacific, and they're actually quite useful. You can pick up that data. What's the site? I'm trying to think of it now. That does give that information. There's two ways of getting the wave data. One is from those buoys, and the other is satellite, which I think I gave you some data on that the other day. But that could very well be. They transmit to a satellite, and then it goes to a land station, and they're able to determine the wave heights. And we do have them scattered all about. Some are moored, and some are drifting. So who knows what this one is. Anyway.
Okay, just another reminder that we will not be here on Monday. We will be have our iPads and phones, etc. with us. And if you need any questions relating to weather, ghradio@extra.co.nz. Okay, a final call. No, I guess they're all really, really busy in New Zealand, getting ready to roll, and we wish you a great trip, folks. So we'll be back again tomorrow, of course, for the Friday session. This is Gulf Harbor Radio. The frequency's all yours. We are clear. Wow, you're a bit late. Did you sleep in, Nova?
Yeah, a bit of a lonely night, Nova.
Oh, God. All right, so go ahead.
My position is 2730 south, 171 20.
Well, you're a bit like Kamara, just heading on the same line, 2701 and 17120. And you've got a southwest, what strength?
15, 18
Okay, and a bit rolly with the swell that's left nagging everybody, but otherwise, is it all okay? Over?
Yeah, everything we hear, we had trouble with the current cases last night, with people sort of standing up and rolling back on itself. Got now, yeah, why? So, have an early morning run.
I guess you won't be expecting gourmet cooking in those conditions then. What sort of boat is Bloomers, over?
It's a funky boat, 34-foot steel, bullet over.
A Bruce design, 34 foot. Okay. Well, you're making reasonable progress though, 2 degrees each day, so I guess you can't complain too much. And conditions look pretty good for the rest of the trip. So there's Vanuatu. I think you're going into Anisham, aren't you, over?
Yep, off for the night of the game, but I just finally now over.
Oh, roger that. All right. Well, there's a few people above you and below you. So, yeah, Y2K is down at 29 and Kamara is at 26. So you'll need to keep a watch. All right. Good to talk to you. We'll try again tomorrow. And it is actually better later in the session to get to you folks that are further west. So we'll give a call at the end of the session again. Okay. Have a good day, you guys. And I think that was it. We're clear. Okay, stop.